Everyone, it's Monica, and welcome back to Tailor-Made Cards for You. Well, over Thanksgiving weekend, I took advantage of some of the wonderful sales that were going on during Black Friday weekend, and I picked up, finally, the Monster Reunion stamp set. Now, I tried to get this several times during the Halloween season, but every time I went to get it, I found it was either not on sale or they were sold out. So I finally got my hands on it over Black Friday, and I don't want to have to wait till Halloween season next year to play with it. So I'm going to go ahead and use this stamp set to create a Christmas card. Yes, I did say a Christmas card. Now, one of the things that I love about creating and crafting is you can transform anything into a really fun card. It doesn't have to be season appropriate necessarily. In fact, I think these monsters are going to make great Christmas card characters. And I'm going to use these little hats from the Jolie's Boutique to help me transform these. Now, when I first had the idea of using these stamps, I thought of Mr. and Mrs. Claus, so Santa Claus and his lovely wife. So I knew that I had the girl that I could use for Mrs. Claus, but I had a couple choices. I could either use the Dracula type of character or the one that kind of looked like Frankenstein. And ultimately, I ended up going with the one that looked like Frankenstein just because his head was a little bit smaller, and I thought the hat would fit better on his head. So I'm going to start out by stamping my stamps using some black archival ink. And black archival ink is Copic friendly, but I don't trust ink sometimes. I don't know if it's just how I'm coloring or what the situation is. Maybe I don't let it dry, but sometimes even with Copic friendly ink, my Copics tend to smear. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp this stamp set, and you're going to find that my images are nice and crisp because over Black Friday weekend, I also got some more black archival ink to refill my pad. So now my pad is nice and juicy. I'm going to go ahead and stamp my characters, and then I'm going to add clear embossing powder over my images. Now, clear embossing powder takes the effect of your color of ink. So I don't have to get all these sorts of colored embossing powders. I can simply just stamp with different color ink pads and use clear embossing powder to get the embossed look. So I'm going to go ahead and just take my clear embossing powder and put it right over my stamped images, and then I'll use my heating tool, and this for me sets my ink. Now I don't have to worry about my ink smearing or smudging at all when I am coloring them up with my Copic colors. Now, like I said, I did use black archival ink, and it probably would have been okay, but whenever I'm working with my images, I just find if I just add a little bit of clear embossing powder, I know I'm always going to be safe. I have certainly colored my images without using my clear embossing powder, and I've been fine a lot of times, but sometimes it does smear. So I just decided I didn't want to take the chance. So I went ahead and I added that extra step. And also, I like the way that the images pop when you put clear embossing powder on them. It gives it kind of a plastic, shiny look, and I think it really looks good when you color up your images. So that's the way I decided to go. All right, so as you can see, these stamps have some sentiments on the bottom, and for Halloween, they're perfect. But I didn't want to have a Christmas card that said, "Someone say candy," or "I put a spell on you." And I certainly wasn't going to cut my stamps. So I knew that I was going to fussy cut these, so I wasn't overly concerned about the sentiment on the bottom. Now, most of my video is going to be coloring, so I'm going to go ahead and speed this up, and then I'm going to talk to you about some of the tips and tricks that I use when I'm coloring up my images. Now, one of the things I love about Tim Holtz's stamps, and Stampers Anonymous isn't anonymous in general, is I love the fact that these are deep red rubber. Now, I do use acrylic stamps, of course, but I like and I prefer the deep red rubber stamps because I think that they give me a really nice crisp impression. And I find that the acrylic stamps tend to stick sometimes to my paper when I'm first using them, but after a while they tend to get a little bit worn in, and I don't have that problem. But I really do prefer the deep red rubber stamps. And then the second thing that I like, especially about the Tim Holtz stamps, is he creates the shadows inside of his stamps. So as you can see on some of these images, you have a lot of lines, you have some darker spots on the image, and you have some lighter spots. So when you color it, it really helps you to create that shadow effect, or get that shadow result. So you don't have to be a perfect colorist. You can simply just take a few colors like I did here, and do some blending, and the stamp will work with you. And that's what I love about these stamps. I by no means have ever professed that I am an excellent or professional colorist, but I do have a few tips. I typically will start with a dark color as my outline, and then I will take my second color, which is my second darkest color, and I'll start to pull the dark color in towards the middle. And then ultimately I'll finish off with the lightest color, and I'll just highlight everything together. So that's typically how I handle my coloring, is I use 3 shades that will complement and work together. Now, another tip that I have when you are wanting to leave something white is I don't necessarily like to leave white on my paper, even if I do want a white color. And I don't necessarily color it in with a white marker. So for instance, when I start to color my Frankenstein monster, I wanted his hands to look like gloves because Santa Claus has gloves, but I'm going to outline it with a really light gray. And I find that if I have a really light gray to outline my area that I'm going to leave white, it really just enhances it, and it makes the white area just look a little bit whiter. Okay, so after I was finished coloring, and these images colored up really nicely, I didn't have any problem at all. I went ahead and took my small Tonic scissors, and I'm going to fussy cut my monsters. And this is another thing I love about Tim's images, is they have real nice crisp lines. You don't have a lot of weaving and a lot of circles you have to go through. The lines are really crisp. It makes it really easy to fussy cut. And a lot of times he does provide dies for you as well. But if you don't invest in the dies, you'll find that even fussy cutting his images are really easy. So I'm going to go ahead and fussy cut both my Santa Claus and my Mrs. Claus. And then I will be ready to put the card together. Okay, so going into this card, I really didn't know what I was going to do for the background. I knew I wanted to use my monster stamps for my Mr. and Mrs. Santa Claus, but I wasn't really sure what I was going to do for the background. Obviously, I knew it was going to be a Christmas theme, but I wasn't sure if I was going to just color the background with some festive colors, or maybe use some designer paper, but I wasn't really sure where I was going to go with it. So I went and I looked at my dies, and the die that just kind of popped out in front of me was the Fireplace Die. And this is the die, of course, that we got during the Christmas in July series. And it's been sitting in my drawer, and I haven't used it yet. I did do a video for the Santa Claus, putting the Santa Claus together, but I haven't worked with the fireplace yet. So I kind of went back and forth whether I wanted to go ahead and put the fireplace together on this video, or just kind of create it off video and then put the card together. And ultimately, because it was the first time I was putting the fireplace together, I didn't want to fumble on screen with you guys. So I did decide to go ahead and put the fireplace together off screen and work my card together after the fact. But I will come back hopefully in the next week, and I'll put this fireplace together for you online. It was really easy. Actually, the Santa Claus was a lot more difficult than the fireplace, but I didn't have a hard time, or as hard of a time, I should say, as I did with the Santa Claus. There are a few tips and tricks I want to give you that I found when I was putting this fireplace together. And I'll share those with you when I actually do that video. Now, the paper that I'm using is from the Abandoned Paper Stack, and this came out during Halloween, I want to say. And I could have easily gone with some Christmas designer paper, but with the monsters, I had to use something a little bit more creepy. And I did actually stay in the red area, so the paper that I used does have some red in the background, but I just found with the red and the black tones, it just kind of fit the theme a little bit better. And as you saw, I went ahead and used my Fabri-Tac glue to adhere my fireplace to my background. And then I'm going to pop up my monsters in front of the fireplace using some of my foam tape. And then once I have my monsters in place, I'm going to go to my sticker book, my Tim Holtz sticker book, and I'm going to get a clipping for the top of my card, just to kind of pull together that whole Christmas theme. When you look at it, I think you could probably tell that it is a Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus kind of a theme, but just in case you couldn't tell that it was a Christmas card, I did put some sentiments and of course the little Santa hat, so that way you can definitely tell that it is a Christmas card. And the sticker that I'm going to use on top of the card is going to say a visit from Santa Claus, and then on the bottom of the card I put a little sticker that said December 25th. So you guys, I had a lot of fun putting this card together. I really got a kick out of it. And even though it took me a few extra minutes to put that fireplace together, I love the fact that it has a really nice background. And I'm going to try to make a couple more. Like I said, I'm going to hopefully get a video together putting the fireplace together for you to show you how to kind of put it together and give you some tips and tricks on that. But if you do have that monster reunion stamp set that you picked up at Halloween, pull it out and make a Christmas card. It really does make a fun Christmas card, and I'm sure whoever you give it to will have a great laugh. So I'll probably be back in a couple of days to do the drawing for the giveaways for my 12 Days of Christmas series. I think that's coming up in the next few days. So I'm going to go ahead and pull some winners and do a video to share with you some of the giveaways that I'll be offering up to y'all. The series was a lot of fun, and if you haven't had a chance to check it out, be sure to check it out because you still have a couple days to leave comments on the videos to be entered into my drawings. So as I finished adding the final touches to the card, which were the Santa hats, I just really love the way this card came together, and I hope that you enjoyed it as well. So as always, I'll leave a list of all the products that I've used to create the card along with the links to the stores. If you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave me a thumbs up, and I would certainly love it if you share my video as well. Now, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, don't forget, hit that subscribe button, and there's a little bell that you can click on that will notify you when my next videos get posted. And don't forget, leave me a comment. Let me know what you thought about my card. Let me know if you have the Monster Reunion stamp set, and if you have made any cards that are not necessarily Halloween themed, but have still been able to use your monster stamps. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for stopping by, and hopefully we'll see you again in a few days.